Talks in Atlanta, Georgia, and everyone getting out there to vote for those 2 Senate seats. So we love you.
That's what I'm talking.
You are listening to KUAW Radio, home of the all-new Jamal Bakes Show, and I'm Jamal Bakes, and thank you so very much for listening to the station bringing you talk, news, entertainment that you won't get anywhere else. KUAWN, of and about our community.
This is the last weekend before Christmas, and on Blue Simon the City, we're wrapping up our all Christmas blues and Southern Soul program.
Oh, Gene Bailey.
Story to tell. When it comes to dogs, that's not on this. I'm not telling it today, but when my wife watches this show, hold that dog up one more again. That's our next dog. Okay, that's what I'm gonna tell her. Okay, Stacy, let's get down to business. I am JP.
We have a lot to get down to. It's been a week.
Yes, we do. I am JP Craddock. That is my girl, Stacy D. Love. We are broadcasting remotely on KUAW Radio. We are remote, dodging COVID and dodging the cold.
That's right.
Because it is ridiculous out there. Today on the show, our question of the day, and we're going to get to this later, is I've been feeling very stressed out and worrying about lots of stuff a lot of the time. Is it possible that I have an anxiety disorder? Okay, so to answer this question, what we're going to do is we're going to review the symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder, because that's the clinical term for anxiety, is generalized anxiety disorder. On our Facebook page, I uploaded a brief assessment. And so if you go to our page, you'll see it. It says GAD. Any of our listeners out there who are experiencing some anxiety and you would like to know, is the anxiety significant? Is it in what we call a clinical range? You can go to our Facebook page and check out that form, complete it. It's only seven to 9 questions, okay? So it's a brief assessment. Later in the show, when we get to the question of the day, I'm going to score that assessment. For those of you who score in the moderate to severe range, we're going to go ahead and do a full review of the symptoms for anxiety disorder and a full diagnosis of that so that you can know exactly where you're at. The purpose of this is so that for those of you who are seriously struggling with anxiety, you can take this information in to your therapist appointment or psychiatry appointment. Now,
and tell them that JP and Stacy D, the professionals.
We're gonna get to that in a minute. We're gonna get to that in a minute.
So the assembly line, I'm on the assembly line.
I know, Stacy D. Hold on. Oh, here's the disclaimer. As a therapist, of course, I cannot officially diagnose anyone over the radio. You have to be physically present. But what we can do, as we have said before, is we can walk you through the process of diagnosing yourself. And I would love it. I have never had clients show up at my office with this information. I would love it if clients showed up and they're like, look, I took this GAD assessment, because JP and Stacy D, they had it on the page and I did it and we scored it and this is where I'm at. And then they did the full assessment and this is where I'm at. I have never been helped out in that manner. So we want to help you guys out as far as that's concerned. All right. If you have any comments, you can post your comments to the Facebook page as well as on YouTube. If you want to call into the show, the number is 816-599-6893. Okay. So we're going to get to all of that later in the show. In the meantime, let's start by checking in with Stacy D. Stacy D, what's going on in your world?
You know what? It's been sort of easy going. I do want to hit on a couple of topics that I did in the previous week. First, I want to discuss the Gorilla Glue lady. Guess what? She has hair again now. And it was so remarkable. Yes, woo-woo! And really, a black lady. And actually,
Stacy D, give a brief little for those who missed the show last week and they are unaware of, they're wondering who is a Gorilla Glue lady. Could you please?
Sure. This is a young lady. Oh my goodness, I forgot her name. Kamisha. And I was trying to write notes. Tessica Brown. Like Jessica with a T. She used Gorilla Glue instead of Got to Be Glue on her hair because it said Gorilla Glue was all purpose and it's in a aerosol can. So she thought she could use that and put her ponytail in there. And her hair was really looking good.
Real good.
It really did look good. It really did. And it's been
Gorilla Glue will hook your hair up.
But let's not do that though. But
Mr. Walker, listeners, you all probably can't see Mr. Walker. He's cracking up in the background. Okay, let me officially state, because I don't want us to get into any trouble. We are not encouraging, although this woman's hair was fly, we are not encouraging the use of it was going to stick for the rest of her life, which was the problem.
Yes.
Okay, but go ahead, Stacy D.
And so she had this going on Twitter and the chat, the Facebook. It was literally everywhere. It was on national news because I seen it on national news. And it was speaking that she's been into the emergency room, been everywhere. It was just really terrible. So, and she also was trying to sue Gorilla Glue too. But anyway, so guess what? A black, oh, Lord have mercy. A black from Hollywood plastic surgeon who's not a chemist, but because he's a very black intelligent man, he was able to come up with, this is one of my favorite words, a concoction to get that Gorilla Glue out. And I was reading on it a couple hours ago. It was castor oil, olive oil, some acetone. It was really 5 different components that broke the Gorilla Glue down. And it took him, he broke it down. And it took him a couple of hours. It did take him a couple of hours, and they gave her a light sedative. And she flew from Louisiana to LA. But he did it free of charge. I just love the love. That's a lot of love. It was a $12,000 plus. Yes. That's how much the surgery was. It was over the procedure was over $12,000. And he did it pro bono. And his name is Dr. Michael Obeng, Obeng. This is great Black history. How this Black man was able to do that. And
yeah, that's recent history.
Listen,
recent history, freshly made.
Well, freshly made. If I didn't have King, have to be on the
All
next.
right, Stacy D.
Hollywood.
Reel it in.
I love me
Reel
some-
it in.
Okay.
Reel it in, Stacy D.
But yes, and then another one that I want to reflect back on. Okay, so I'm real big on giving people nicknames, and the guy who stormed the White House, and I think we discussed him. What was it, 2 weeks ago, JP, about that he was wanting the organic food and
the food with horns.
Yeah, the food with horns. Well, I gave him
And
a name.
fur.
I call him Tarzan.
Well, that's the fur part.
Yeah, because of the fur.
And the
part.
horns.
I gave him the name Tarzan. Guess what?
Okay, wait. Did you give he was upset in jail because they would not feed him organic food. And when he stormed the Capitol, he didn't know they was going to put him in a jail without organic food. And so he was shocked and surprised and very dismayed.
Period. He thought he wasn't going to jail, period, because when it's white, it's right. And our former president told him to go do it.
True.
So he didn't go to jail about what? Please.
But he was appalled when he got there and went days and days, 5-7 days without eating because they did not want to give a criminal who's a murderess, who was a part of a murderous mob, organic food. So what's the update on that, Stacy D?
He got his organic food.
You know I'm livid.
On our tax dollars.
You know I'm livid. Here's my question. I'm not going to go on a rant about this. If a Black man was involved in a protest that turned into a riot, that turned into a murderous mob, that stormed the Capitol and he ended up in jail and he demanded organic food, what would be the response that he would get?
No.
And
all the grievances and things that you want to do, it doesn't matter, because we can look at our Black men who, because of religious purposes,
true,
that's incarcerated, they don't give them a special diet, and this is religious,
right?
They do not get a special diet.
A Black man would have been told, food, please. A Black man who was not rioting or a part of a mob or storming a federal building, just a Black man arrested during a peaceful protest is not getting organic food in jail.
No, sir. I don't believe that. I do not believe it. No matter what. Well, no matter what.
I mean, it's the ridiculousness of the state of America at this time. Okay, well, here's what's going on in my world. And you know, I have a list of ridiculousness because my life is like a sitcom called Ridiculous Life of JP. But actually, instead of sharing some ridiculousness like I did last week, I kind of want to share something a little bit more serious. I have been thinking about the COVID vaccine. And I have decided, yes, I have decided that I am not going to get the COVID vaccination shot until after the elderly have gotten it. It's administered in phases, and as a healthcare professional, because my wife, she's gotten both of her doses. As a healthcare professional, I could, but I thought about it. I'm working from the comfort of my home. The only time I was leaving to go to the radio station, and we're not even going to the radio station. So I'm like working from the comfort of home. I'm not seeing clients in the office and have not since last February. And so I just don't want to feel like I'm cutting in line to get the COVID vaccination. And they have all these elderly people, elderly patients in nursing homes who have not gotten it. And so I'm kind of struggling with that. I'm just going to hold off and wait and, you know, allow the government some time to sort this out. But something interesting to note is, one, we need to keep in mind, because, you know, in the African-American community, there's a lot of hesitance on getting this vaccination. And I can understand why, because Tuskegee did happen. we can't pretend that it didn't. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it because we can cover that one day during our Black History segment. Tuskegee did happen, and it did go on for about 40 years.
Yes.
40, yes, years. And so 30 to 40 years. And so I can understand the hesitance in the Black community. Something that I want for African Americans, Black folks to think about is the difference between Tuskegee and COVID. This is a global pandemic affecting people of all races and nationalities. Tuskegee was, a situation where it was all Black subjects. Now, let's take this COVID vaccination. If you show up to get the vaccination and all you see are white scientists injecting a line that only has Black folks in it, by all means, duck and run. Get up out of there, quick. Okay, but that's not the case. This is a situation, a pandemic that is affecting all people. And so when you show up to get in line for your COVID vaccination, you are in line with Black folks, brown folks, like folks of all races, nationalities, okay, including white folks. If white folks are injecting themselves with a vaccination, get in line. Black people, get in line. Here's something else to think about. If the government decided, and I wouldn't put this past our previous president, he probably thought about this. If the government decided, we're going to provide this to everyone but African Americans, Black folks would be having a fit, protesting, marching, give us our shot, give us our shot. So we have to think about this. Like, we would be upset if we were being denied the vaccine, and we are being apprehensive when we are being, provided the vaccine. I do not think that this is something to be afraid of. My wife did have some mild side effects that subsided within 24 hours. It was some mild flu symptoms. The next day, this woman was up and rolling around this house like nothing happened to her. Okay, so I've just been thinking about that. I wanted to address it just to say, I want our people to be open-minded about this. Okay, Stacy D, do you have any thoughts on it? Stacy D, have you gotten vaccinated yet?
No.
No. Okay. Well, let's just move. Stacy D, you need to wait. Let all the elderly.
Why? I'm all out in the community. You want to know my reason why?
Okay, what is it?
Well, my doctor asked me to hold off for a little while due to I can't even take the flu vaccination. I'm allergic to that. And because I have a lot of allergies, and the flu vaccination almost took me out of here 3 years ago. So literally, if a job I contract with wants me to get that, like when I was contracted with Cerner, he basically wrote I got a letter not to go get it. He wrote a letter for it. And so he wants me to wait a little while because it has not been tested enough to see if you do have allergies to certain things, will it flare up? Because I literally have an iffy pen. So I really have to be careful with certain things. And I don't know the different oils. Like I can't even use the almond oil on my skin.
You do have a lot of allergies.
Yes. So he wants me to get it, but he wants me to wait a little while for them to do a little bit more testing on it. Yes.
Okay. Do you agree, Stacy D, that that this is not something that African Americans need to be overly concerned about? I mean, I understand the lack of trust. What?
I'm still on the sideline about that one. Okay.
Well, and there,
because it came out really quick, but I think they have been working on it for years. I really believe that.
Okay. And it did. I mean, I don't know. I just think that everybody is taking it. Everyone is being administered the vaccine. So yes, African Americans have.
It's the same thing like the whooping cough. I caught whooping cough 5 years ago because I did not take a vaccination for whooping cough because I'm grown. But if you take a tetanus shot, the whooping cough vaccination is in the tetanus shot.
Oh, okay.
But just remember, what was it? What could we say? 60, 70, 1920, when they had the big lumps and all these different things. So it's really just another vaccination. It's really just another vaccination. Okay. But for me, they have to do a little bit more testing.
For you as an individual, I'm encouraging, our African-American, people, citizens to think about this seriously because we need to stop the spread of COVID. And the Black community has been hugely negatively impacted by COVID. So yes, there's room to not trust America over the past 4 years, especially, but I'm wanting us to kind of move forward. All right, Stacy D, what's your news headline? I wonder which one of us has the best news headline today. We should start having a competition to see who has the best news headline, and then the loser have to donate some money to the winner's charity. Now that's something to think about. But what you got?
Wow, that is a good one.
I'm saying that today because I got a good headline.
You do. Well, guess what? Because of time's sake, I'm gonna let you do yours. Remember, I'm still on the assembly line, everybody. I'm gonna let you do yours, JP.
Okay. I have a few. So if we have time at the end of the show, there's a couple of other things that have occurred in the news that I wanted to address. But today, I wanted to kind of talk about the fact that Donald Trump was acquitted on the charges of inciting the insurrection. Only 7 Republican senators voted to convict him. 57 senators voted guilty. 43 senators voted not guilty, which was not enough in order to, get a conviction. Now, this is what's interesting that I kind of wanted everyone to think about. 58% of Americans say that he should have been convicted. Okay, so the majority of Americans are like, listen, what? Acquitted? Not guilty? What? Okay. Now, 14% of Republicans say that he should have been convicted, which interestingly is the same percentage of Republican senators that voted to convict. So it's kind of interesting that ended up balancing out. 74, this is the really interesting thing for us to think about because he was not found guilty, he is able to run for re-election in 4 years. Even if he is charged in criminal court and there's some civil cases, he will still be able to run for president in 4 years, and it's most likely his plan. So here's something to think about. 74% of Republicans want him to stay active in some way politically. 74%. 48% of Republicans want him to remain the head of the party. This is a CNBC survey. And so since his acquittal, he has since stated that his movement has, quote, only just begun, end of quote. He's meeting with aides and allies so that he can continue to be a force in the Republican Party. What this means to me is that racism is still strong in America, which is not surprising, but because he is giving hope to his cult followers, it is most likely going to remain strong for the next 4 years. This is fuel for his movement. Okay, so that's my news headline for today.
2021, and we're still dealing with that. Racism is never going anywhere.
And it's unfortunate that, I kind of thought we were going to get a little bit of a reprieve, but apparently not.
No.
This takes me into our modern parenting question. The modern parenting question that I received was, how do I explain Trump's acquittal to my children who I have always taught that crime doesn't pay?
That's a good one.
It is a good question. And, you know, I immediately had an answer to this question. I just wasn't necessarily sure that I wanted to share it on the air, but the truth is the truth. And even when I try not to keep things real, I'm unsuccessful at doing that. So here's my answer. And Stacy, do you let me know what you think?
Come
but
on,
I feel like
come on, Mr.
parents,
Realist JP.
there we go. Parents, you need to tell your kids the truth, that crime does not pay if you are Black in America. Donald Trump was elected into the presidency with a known history of criminality, a known history of sexual misconduct and assaults, racial discrimination in the management of his commercial properties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this man came into office as a criminal. Yes. These are the same things that a Black candidate, such as Barack Obama, would never have been able to overcome. If Barack Obama, as president, had committed even a small fraction of the acts committed by Trump, he would have easily been impeached and convicted. So here's the deal. When it comes to what do we say to our children who watch the news and they're like, well, he's a criminal and he got away with it. What happened to crime doesn't pay? Crime doesn't pay. Crime does not pay if you are Black in America. And to keep your children out of prisons and mortuaries, we have to teach them the reality of life in America as an African American. There are two sets of rules here. There are those for whites, and then there are those for Blacks. So for them, crime still does not pay. What are your thoughts, Stacy D?
By me being a mother of two Black men, I used to always tell them, and this is when they were teenagers and started driving, when the police pull you over, do not argue with them. 9 times out of 10, you are going to be right. It's not your fault that your mother struggled and tried to give you a better life and you have a better car in high school than the average high schooler do. Keep your license right. Keep the driver's license in your insurance card in the car. And when you stop, put your hands on the steering wheel and look straight ahead. And at that time, call me on the cell phone, because cell phones just started, and keep me on the phone and let me know where you are. Because guess what? Mama Bear is on her way.
There you go. I'm glad that you have taught your kids that. I think that most parents are doing a great job of teaching their children that. The only time I am seeing a little bit of a struggle with it is with some of my families, some of my families where one of the parents is Caucasian. And it's not that they don't feel that they need to teach their young biracial children about life as a Black person in America, especially a Black male. It's just that sometimes they feel uncomfortable because they are white. They love their kids, but they're like, I don't really know how to address this. And so what I always encourage them is address the reality of it. Like, we have to keep it real with our kids. And, just because you are not Black does not mean that you cannot teach your young Black kids how to survive in America.
This is true.
True. A lot of times we'll have like family therapy sessions and I will help them with that and help walk them through that. But I just wanted to say on the air today, you do not need to like schedule a family therapy appointment with a Black male therapist to have the conversation with your kids on how to survive as a Black person in America, how to make it through. and interaction with police and walk away alive, this is a talk that has to be had, regardless of whether or not you are Black. Have this conversation with your kids. It has to be had.
This is true. Like you said,
right.
to keep them out the mortuary or the prison, it has to be done.
It has
It's
to.
sad. It's very sad. But yes.
Right. Okay. Let's see.
Let's get on to the question of the day.
Well, I think I want us to go ahead and let's take a quick commercial break. And then as soon as we get back from commercial, we will get into the question of the day. We have a lot to cover, so I'm gonna be going kind of fast. So this is the last opportunity to download that assessment because we're scoring that right after this break.
All right, you're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. We don't only bring you videos on Facebook and YouTube, but listen to our audio only.
Stacy
where
D.
you'll get shows like Cheryl Underwood and
We on the
Blues
road
Time
today.
in the City. You can pick us up at www.kuaw.org or go to the TuneIn app and search KUAW. Listen to us. We're on 24 hours a day. That's KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. And this is what you hear every day from noon till 2. Don't miss the Cheryl Underwood Show.
Where you at, baby? Sure, I'm at my first alma mater, Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. CAU was the first HBCU in the southern United States. Shout out to our affiliate ATL Talks in Atlanta, Georgia, and everyone getting out there to vote for those 2 Senate seats. We love you.
That's what I'm talking.
You are listening to KUAW Radio, home of the all-new Jamal Bakes Show, and I'm Jamal Bakes, and thank you so very much for listening to the station bringing you talk, news, entertainment that you won't get anywhere else. KUAW, in, of, and about our community.
This is the last weekend before Christmas, and on Blue Simon in the City, we're wrapping up our all Christmas blues and Southern Soul program.
Oh, Gene Bailey.
We have a very special guest that you will definitely enjoy, and we'll hear from some of the artists that sing the Christmas blues. Join me, Gene Bailey, for Blues Time in the City this weekend before Christmas, right here.
This is comedian Janelle Banks, and you are listening to KUAW, Kansas City.
KUAW listeners, this is Carl Boyd for Wave Your Grades, coming to you every Saturday from 1 until 2 p.m. right here on KUAW. This program features Americans.
All right, welcome back to Cognitions, Speaking the Unspeakable with JP and Stacy D. We're about to get Stacy D. We're about to get into the question of the day today. The question of the day was, I've been feeling very stressed out and worrying about lots of stuff a lot of the time. Is it possible that I have an anxiety disorder? Okay. In layman terms, it's just called anxiety disorder. Clinically, we call it generalized anxiety disorder. So when I say generalized anxiety disorder or GAD, that is what I am talking about. All right, for those of you who completed the assessment that we uploaded onto our Facebook page, the GAD-7, let's go ahead and score that. I'm going to walk you through the process of scoring this assessment. Okay, so as you look at it, and I have a sample here that I'm going to score as well. As you look at it, the options are not at all, which is a 0, several days, which is a 1, more than half the days, which is a 2, or nearly every day, which is a 3. Most people look at this over like a 2-week time period, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what you do is, as you look at the bottom of the columns, you just add up the numbers in each column. So, for example, on mine, not at all, of course, 0 is going to be 0. For several days, this person circled that once. So the number for that, the total for that is 1. More than half the days is circled once. So the total for that is 2. And then nearly every day, this person circled 3 times, which is 9. So 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 9 equals 12. Okay, now if you scored between 0 and 4, that is minimal anxiety. If you scored between 5 and 9, that is mild anxiety. If you scored between 10 and 14, that is moderate anxiety. And so this person scored a 12. They're in the range of moderate anxiety. And if you scored a 15 or above, that is severe anxiety. Okay, so for those of you who scored in the moderate to severe range, we're going to go ahead and do the full assessment. On our Facebook page, there is the diagnostic tracking form. I've referenced that form before. And so that is the form that you're going to use to do the rest of this assessment. And all of our shows are recorded. So if you do not have time to go and get that now, it's fine. You can just listen to the show later and complete the full assessment for anxiety disorder then. All right. So let's see. At the top of that form, there is always the number of symptoms, okay? Because I wanted the form to be simple and easy to use. And so at the top, you're going to fill in anxiety disorder or GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, okay? What you are going to need in the area where it says how many symptoms, you're going to need a total of 8 symptoms in order to meet the criteria for having generalized anxiety disorder. Okay, so you're going to need symptom A, and I'm going to read these. You're going to need symptom A, symptom B, 3 symptoms from C, and then the criteria of D, E, and F. So of the 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are actual symptoms, and the other 3 are criteria. So let's get into it. Symptom A. Excessive anxiety and worry, apprehensive expectation occurring more days than not for at least 6 months, about a number of events or activities such as work or school performance. Okay, so just think about that. That's symptom A. Symptom B, the individual finds it difficult to control the worry. And so it's like you're worried, you're stressed about work, about school performance, about family situations. It's been going on for at least 6 months. And when you try to consciously control the worrying, you're trying to stop yourself like, okay, I need to just chill out. I need to chill out. You're unable to do so. So that's symptom B. Now, you need at least 3 symptoms from C, and there is a total of 6. So let me go down those. Number 1 is a feeling of restlessness or feeling keyed up or on edge. And that restlessness is just struggling to be still, to sit still because you're so agitated and anxious and stressed out. Okay. And all these symptoms, I should have said this before, all of this is from the DSM-5. Okay. So these are the official diagnostic criteria. We talked about this on the show before. Yes, on the show before when we diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, which is a sociopath, we made it clear that all of our diagnosing is going to come from an official source, which is the DSM-5, not Google. Okay. So number 2, being easily fatigued. When a person is experiencing clinical anxiety, you'll find yourself just feeling tired, although you haven't necessarily done a level of physical exertion to match the amount of fatigue. Number 3, difficulty concentrating or your mind going blank. Okay. Anxiety can cause that poor concentration, high distractibility, or just the opposite extreme, which is being so overwhelmed that your mind just goes blank. 4, irritability. This is a very common symptom. I'm seeing lots and lots of people who are struggling with anxiety since the pandemic started. And one of the symptoms that brings them into therapy is they're very irritable. They're like, I keep snapping on everybody. Okay, I done went off on everybody. So irritability, yes. Number 5, muscle tension. And you'll just feel that in your body that you're just tense and agitated. And then number 6 is sleep disturbance. Okay, now let me explain sleep disturbance because it's difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. There's 3 different types of insomnia: initial, middle, and terminal. Okay, initial stage insomnia is having trouble falling asleep at night. Middle stage insomnia is waking up in the middle of the night and having trouble falling back to sleep. And then terminal stage insomnia is waking up really early in the morning and having trouble going back to sleep. So for me, when I am experiencing anxiety, I experience terminal stage insomnia because I already have trouble falling asleep at night anyway, no matter how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
But when the stress gets overwhelming, I'll wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and just be laying there thinking about whatever it is that is causing the anxiety. Okay, so those are the 6 symptoms from C. A person meeting this diagnosis needs at least 3 of those. Okay, what we have left is D, E, and F. D is the anxiety, worry, or physical symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas. Clinically significant means when we diagnose things, it's not enough to just have the symptoms of it. The symptoms have to be severe enough to be negatively affecting your functioning. That's what clinical significance means, okay? So affecting your social interactions, affecting you at work, affecting you, just in general, it has to be. So that's D. E is the disturbance is not attributable to the physiological effects of a substance. So if you are high and anxious, you do not have generalized anxiety disorder, you are high.
Put the drugs down.
Stop getting high. And the anxiety will go away. Okay, so that is a rule out on this. Like, if it's caused by a substance, that's a whole different diagnosis. Now, there is another diagnosis for that. We're not covering it today.
Another show.
It's not this one. F is the disturbance is not better explained by another mental disorder. Example given, anxiety or worry about having panic attacks in panic disorder. And so if you have already been diagnosed with something else that has the symptom of anxiety, then this isn't the diagnosis. That is the diagnosis because that's the diagnosis that is predominant. Okay, so did all of that make sense, Stacy? Did it make sense to you as I was explaining it? Do you think our listeners are clear?
Yes.
Okay, so
pretty good. Very simple.
If anyone has any questions about any of this, just hit us up in the chat. You can also email us, speaking the unspeakable 0608@gmail.com, because we understand that sometimes people have questions and we are more than willing to answer those questions about this. Now, for those of you who are like, okay, I'm pretty clear, I just met the criteria for this diagnosis, what do I do now? Well, you take this information and schedule an appointment with a therapist. What the therapy looks like is actually, let me back up a minute. There is another diagnosis that has all of these exact same symptoms, and it is not considered to be generalized anxiety disorder. So let's talk about that for a minute. The other diagnosis that has all the symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder, but is not, is adjustment disorder with anxiety. Adjustment disorder with anxiety is when the anxiety that you are experiencing, these symptoms, the symptomatology is being caused by a specific life incident, life occurring incident. Okay, so when you are having like an isolated incident, and it doesn't always have to be something negative, it can be something positive. When a person starts a new job, you're nervous,
Get married.
especially about to get married,
Yes.
moving, relocating. It can be something positive or something negative, but because it's situational anxiety, the diagnosis is adjustment disorder with anxiety. And really, the vast majority of the clients that come in for therapy for anxiety do not have generalized anxiety disorder. They have adjustment disorder with anxiety. And this is something that Stacy D and I were talking about just last night, because I was saying, when I experience anxiety, it is adjustment disorder with anxiety. And for me, it's anything that is a public presentation, speaking engagements, even us launching a radio show. And like, I will experience anxiety in connection to those things. And my way of alleviating the anxiety is just preparation. Like,
yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Almost obsessive preparation for present. It can even be like, I have presented on college campuses. It can only be a 2-hour presentation. I will spend like weeks preparing. By the time I get up on that stage with PowerPoints and everything, like, everything's basically memorized. And so the therapy for the anxiety disorders is cognitive and behavioral. Cognitive behavioral therapy. The cognitive piece is taking a look at the thoughts that are creating and or exacerbating the anxiety, because our thoughts dictate our feelings. This is rational emotive psychotherapy, which is one of the cognitive therapies. And so how we think is going to increase or decrease our anxiety. So when you go to therapy, the therapist is going to take a look at, okay, what are the thoughts that the person is experiencing? The behavioral piece is anything from exercise, guided meditation, yoga plus meditation, and also following through on whatever behavioral interventions that you and the therapist have come up with as far as problem solving. If a person is stressed out about something and you need to do problem solving, and the therapist may help you with that. Or eliminating cognitions, which are thoughts, as we've covered, that are creating it, and replacing them with cognitions that are grounded in reality. So a lot of times I'll have clients who's like, I can't do this. I always screw up. I can't do it. And it's like, where's the evidence to support that statement? Do you have evidence supporting that you are always a failure? Well, no. Do you have evidence supporting some successes in your life? They'll go through a long list. Okay, so that's a cognitive distortion. It's a thinking error that you are always going to fail, that you're always going to screw up, that you can't be successful. Let's replace that thought with a thought that's grounded in reality. That's the cognitive piece. All right. I think we're good on that.
Cool beans.
Okay, we have about 10, 12 minutes left. What do we have time for, Stacy D?
Well, I do have some things about Black History, because it is Friday. It is February, I'm sorry. Woo-woo.
Black History Month.
Black History Month, but guess what? On Speaking the Unspeakable with JP and Stacy D, we're going to always have something given time, okay? I like to bring something here from Kansas City so we can really identify it, and we can be like, oh, wait. Well, the Black History moment that I have for Kansas City is, his name is Lafayette Alonzo Tillman. Never heard of that name, have you?
No, tell us more, Stacy D.
Oh, yes. Well, he was one of the first Black police officers in Kansas City, Missouri. And he was actually promoted to a lieutenant, a sergeant, whichever one is right there, that's right there by the chief or the captain. And He did it for 2 days. He was like
2 days.
2 days. He had a position for 2 days because it was not the recognition that he wanted. Because, mind you, this is 1920. So he could regulate the Black officers, but he better not say nothing to a white officer, even if they were really, really lower than he was. So he was like, you guys can keep all those stripes. Because if I can't have the authority that I need to have, I'll just be a police officer and help my community that way.
Yeah, so he wasn't supported by the police department.
No.
Despite the fact that they promoted him to the position.
Yes, because they just wanted him to be over the Black officers, but not the white officers. Yes. Back to our racism. It's nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
Right.
And in 1920, there was actually 11 Black police officers in the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. And the African Americans represented how much of the population in Kansas City, Missouri? We were over half. But we only had 11 police officers. We had one detective, and this is in 1920. We had one Black detective and one Black firefighter.
That's impressive that someone made it to detective, because it's my understanding that it's still hard to make detective.
Yes, it is. You gotta know someone. And then here go a fun fact. And these are for the women, for the females. Mary Patrice Davison Kenner, Kenner. She was a Black lady. Yes. I've never heard of that name before a day in my life. But she was from New York. And in 1957, she invented the sanitary napkin belt and also a pocket to keep like 5 sanitary napkins in the belt. That was very impressive. So in 1957, she got a phone call from, I believe it was Johnson & Johnson's, that said, hey, Miss Kenner, we'd like to come and meet with you and get a contract and buy your patent and this, that, and the other, right? She said she don't think she's seen was cars, houses, and I done made it to the big league, like the Jeffersons, moving on up. Well, guess what? They came to her home. 1957. They came to her home, seen she was Black, and said, no, thank you.
So they didn't know.
No.
So what ended up happening to the belt?
Someone else came in and reinvented it. But she has the first patent for it. Once again, when you're white, you're right.
Right.
That one there really did take me. I was like, wow. She went to Harvard for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, but she had to drop out because of financial problems and stuff. But I was like, wow, really? So that was just 2 great, famous, unknown African-American individuals who did not get their glory because of the color of their skin.
I really appreciate you sharing their stories, Stacy D, because oftentimes for Black History Month, a lot of what is shared is what is shared repeatedly. And it's the successes.
And they're good.
Yes, the successes in African Americans' contributions to American society, but we also need to know about some of the struggles and the things that, African Americans attempted to contribute and were denied.
Yes.
So those are 2 names that I had not heard, and that part is unfortunate. That's evidence that they were denied.
Oh, yes. So. Said it in the autobiographies. It said it.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that concludes our show for today.
No, we were having so much fun.
I think it's a wrap, Stacy D.
I think to highlight back, we really hit on some real good things, JP. I mean, it was good. I really enjoyed this show.
It was a great show today.
Situational anxiety, generalized anxiety. Those are two big ones. Those are really two big ones.
Well, and everybody experiences anxiety. When we cover the adjustment disorders, we're going to talk about the fact that every single person on the planet experiences adjustment disorders as a part of living life. We're going to normalize that. So when we get to that, we're going to talk about that. Thanks for joining us, everyone, today. And remember, worry about nothing and pray about
everything.
God bless and take care.
Bye-bye now.